Welcome to the Armchair Fantasy Football Podcast. Here are your hosts, DJ Marcotte and John Soroyce. Enjoy the show.
Let's go! Chicka, 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 chicka.
You must be very excited about our second half of our wide receiver rankings, John.
Oh, I am.
Yeah, me too. So welcome everybody to the Armchair Fantasy Football Podcast, where we take fantasy football to the extreme. No holes barred, no time limits. And today we're wrapping up our wide receiver rankings, wide receivers 13 through 24. But before that, John, you want to get into some news, a little fantasy news flash?
Yes, news time in the city.
All right, well, we'll start out with Miles Sanders. Hamstring looks like it's going to force him to miss minicamp. Not a good sign, John.
No, definitely not a good sign.
Soft tissue injury.
It's going to put him behind on the depth chart, as well as also read, Deuce Staley has stated, and I wouldn't read in too much into this, but he has also said that he's going to use a running back by committee approach.
Yeah, so I like Miles Sanders a lot. I actually took him early in our dynasty draft, head and shoulders above all the other backs on that team in terms of talent and ability to catch the ball, run the ball. He's the total package, but hamstrings are lingering, aren't they, John?
Yep, usually when those pop up, usually bug them all year round.
Yep, and hopefully that's not the case with Miles Sanders, but definitely something to keep an eye on. Not good to see something like that this early on. Good news on the injury front. Jimmy Garoppolo is on track for training camp. He tore his ACL last September, so that'll be good for him to get in the rhythm with his receivers and his new receivers such as Deebo Samuel. What are your thoughts on Garoppolo's chances this year, John?
From what I'm reading, the reports and everything, sounds like Jimmy G should be limited at first, but we'll probably see a little bit of preseason action. If I'm the 49ers, I play it safe. I don't give him too much. I mean, you don't want him to be too rusty going into the season, but at the same fact, you want to see what he has and how he's moving, adapting, everything after that surgery. Not to mention to build his confidence back up either. As well.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know what to think of Jimmy Garoppolo quite yet. What we've seen from him is pretty good, but very small sample sizes. But his recovery looks to be right on pace, so that's good news for the 49ers. What about Damian Harris? I was reading recently on Roto-World that the Athletic's Jeff Howe says that Damian Harris could earn a prominent role. And I guess I'm not sure what a prominent role means.
In a Belichick offense?
I don't know how prominent it could be. But Sony Michel did miss some time. It was said to be personal, but there was some stuff out recently that it might have been injury-related.
Hearing a knee scope, possibly.
Yep, so the procedure that he had done in the offseason. He says it's not a big deal, but, I am a huge Sony Michel guy. I really like him a lot. He was very explosive. He's a very explosive player. His yards per carry weren't great last year, but they did draft Damian Harris relatively early. Now we're hearing that he could have a prominent role, and James White's going to siphon a lot of catches. So I'm a little worried about Sony Michel this year, but we'll see how it all pans out. I mean, you hear this stuff this early in the, not even preseason, not even training camp yet.
I'd rather hear it now, though.
Yeah, but you got to take it with a grain of salt, too. So we'll see how that shakes out in New England. Sony Michel owners might be a little scared by reading that, though. Also in the news, Todd Gurley says he is not concerned about his injury. Quote, I had bigger problems coming out of college, which was his ACL. This is small, according to Gurley. He didn't get into specifics, though, and we've seen a lot of negative warning signs, and I know one of the things that John and I are trying to avoid this year is risky players, and Todd Gurley is definitely risky. Wouldn't you agree with that, John?
He's very risky. He's a high risk, high reward. If nothing pans of these injury issues, and he goes off any of the capability he has, it's going to be high reward, obviously. But at the same time, it is a high risk. Like we were just saying a second ago, injuries sometimes reoccur, and they can lead to other injuries. My condolences out to Kevin Durant. That'd be a perfect example.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
So, I mean, wait and see approach. I mean, if you're in a good spot to take him or you get him at a bargain, I say take the chance. If,
I've seen him, yeah.
I wouldn't use a high pick on him.
No, and I mean, I guess what's a high pick, but I've seen him go in mock drafts right around 10, so I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, especially with the injury news lingering.
You gotta know what you're getting with that, though, in terms of, like you said, the risk. Anything else in the news, John?
Yeah, there's a few other things. Delaney Walker is participating at minicamp,
Cool.
but the bad part of it is he's about 85%.
Is he ever going to be 100%? You know what I mean? At his age, I think
he's old man
85%.
Walker, but he still gets the job done. But I think he should be fine. They're saying hopefully by the time preseason. Camp he'll be limited, but I mean they're going to take it easy on him. He is a veteran. So other news, Evan Ingram sidelined with a hamstring injury.
Yeah, I saw that. It was a little disappointing. I've got some high hopes for Ingram this year in terms of the abandoned targets coming from Odell. You know, the thing with Ingram is he's often dinged up, much like Odell Beckham. So not, again, same with the hamstring, with Miles Sanders. Not really encouraging seeing that early on, but it did look like it was minor and they were just taking precautions.
This is positive news. Ebron is running full speed after his groin injury at minicamp.
Can't wait till that Sleepers and Bust episode to talk about Eric Ebron. That's all I got to say about that. Yeah, definitely.
Some good news for a rookie, JJ
Arcega-Whiteside. I'm just going to save you
butcher it.
before you take it to the butcher shop.
I'm going to shorten it for Jaw.
Okay, Jaw. How about just JJ?
JJ's fine.
Yeah.
He's actually impressing very well at minicamp. Very, very quick red zone target. He's been making an impact in the red zone.
Yep. Speaking of nicknames, what was the official nickname that we came up with for Michael Thomas?
Shock T.
Shock T, because Shock G is the guy in Digital Underground. That was the lead singer's
name of Digital Underground. So now
and Shock M doesn't sound like it has a ring to it.
So Michael Thomas's new nickname on this
is Shock
on
T.
this show will be Shock T.
I like it. Let's do it. Any more news, John?
The only other thing was I thought I had one more thing, and that was not Marlon Mack, Nyheim Hines. From what Frank Wright is saying, the addition of Paris Campbell would affect Nyheim Hines' targets.
That's it. Yeah, let's talk about that. Tell me what you think.
Marlon Mack is their main guy.
Yep.
But in the same mouth, he also said that their offensive plan will change week to week. So that kind of creates a little cloudy of a situation, but it sounds like they're going to spread that ball. I think, honestly, the biggest beneficiary of this is going to be Marlon Mack.
I think it hurts Paris Campbell, too.
It hurts Paris Campbell, too, because we don't know where he's going to go. Plus, the other additions they have and people coming back from injury, like O'Doyle Rules and... and Ebron, so it's...
Can you just say Doyle Rules?
O'Doyle Rules. We'll see how it goes from there, but it does make a little cloudy situation of who to target in fantasy.
So okay, yeah, no, I challenge you to find a team that has more of the too many mouths to feed cliche than Indy does. So I guess that's only good for Andrew Luck this year. So are you ready? Let's. Oh wait, sorry.
What the heck was that? Jurassic Park?
I was going for a drop there, but I hit the wrong drop.
The Velociraptors.
Yeah, maybe this one will work. There you go. Let's splash into the the rankings. Let's dive back in. Sorry about that issue with the incorrect drop there, but it did sound pretty epic. So
yeah, I was like, okay, we're going into some mythological thing.
Hey, John, I can make mistakes too.
All good.
So let's start with number 13. We'll get back on the list. Just to recap, the expert rankings up to this point was number 1, DeAndre Hopkins. Number 2, Devontae Adams. Number 3, Julio Jones. Number 4, Odell Beckham Jr. Number 5, Michael Thomas. Number 6, my man, Juju Smith-Schuster. Number 7, Antonio Brown, or as John likes to call him, the Walrus.
Yep.
Number 8, Mike Evans. Number 9, T.Y. Hilton. Number 10, A.J. Green. Number 11, Keenan Allen. And number 12, Amari Cooper. And by the way, if this is your first time listening, I'm DJ, and this is the secret Asian man, John Sorois. Sorry I didn't do an introduction early on, but we were so excited to get into these rankings that, yeah. You like that nickname?
Yeah, I like that. I like it.
Somebody will call me out on that one, I'm sure. But anyway... So yeah, number 13, Adam Thielen. I know this is a guy that's been near and dear to your heart over the last couple of years. I appreciate his talent, but as a huge Stephon Diggs fan and owner, he's more of a nuisance than anything to me. But he is a PPR stud. 113 receptions last year, 1,373 yards, which is actually a great yardage total as well. And his touchdowns, 9 touchdowns, which, John, you're more of the stat guy, but I feel like that might be
that's a career
his career high. Yeah,
he doubled his touchdown from the year before in the same amount of games.
So my opinion, and we'll get into it too with Diggs because I think they're back-to-back on the rankings. Thielen is, I think, the more secure target for Kirk Cousins, but Diggs is the shot caller, man. He's the one that is going to make it happen.
I like the way I like to compare them to is Thielen's your slot receiver. I mean, he can play other positions, but he's my opinion, your captain consistent. He'll get you the same floor or ceiling, I would say, in points wise. Very consistent, very, very consistent. The thing with Diggs, he's very talented, but where he plays that outer wide receiver, the outside more, he has a very high reward.
Yeah.
So if he catches a long bomb, which they've started throwing more, and with a line now to protect Cousins, you may see Diggs explode this year.
And just for the record, John, you have Adam Thielen ranked at 14. Excuse me, I have him ranked at 14. And John, you have him ranked at 10. So you like him quite a bit better than I do. And I don't dislike Thielen. I just think...
I still think he's going to be involved. I mean,
I think the cream eventually rises to the top, and I think we would both agree. And we'll talk about Diggs too. We'll throw him in here. Diggs is ranked 14th ECR. I actually have Diggs at 12, and John, you have Diggs at 14 as well. I just think Diggs is the elite talent. Adam Thielen is not an elite talent. Late breakout age, good player. I like him, and I'd love to have him on my fantasy team. But I win championships with players with high upside. So if you put me on the spot and I was in a draft and I had Diggs there and Thielen there, I would take Diggs every single time. What about you? I know, like you said, Thielen's maybe more consistent, but I would challenge people to look at the numbers on that as well. Diggs was fairly consistent.
I believe, I'm going to pull it up here in a second. I believe Diggs, it was a career year for him, but...
Diggs had a great year, and he played, I think, 15 games. Yeah,
it was a career year for him. He also had 9 touchdowns for 1,021 yards.
And I think less targets, but their target count, both of them had a really good target count.
No, target count was, Thielen's was slightly higher, not much.
Yeah, but they were both good.
Yeah,
they were
good.
in the same wheelhouse.
Diggs had 102 receptions.
And that's the good thing. Obviously, Cousins likes both of them and trusts both of them. Because who's the third receiver there? It was Laquan Treadwell, and that guy, he gone.
Who?
Yeah, exactly. So is it Kyle Rudolph, who, we kind of skipped it in the news, but he just got an extension.
Could be Irv Smith.
Irv Smith Jr., yep. But I think you go with what you know, and what Cousins knows is Diggs and Thielen. So obviously, I think if you look at any rankings, they're probably going to be back-to-back in anybody's rankings, except for mine. I have them a couple of spots apart. But, I
think they can both...
There's enough ball to go around for both of them.
Exactly, and I think, like I said at the beginning, was with them improving their line and everything, a run game back, it's just going to open up the pass game more. So, my opinion, there can be 2,000-yard receivers there. To pinpoint who's going to be the exact one that goes off, it's hard, but like I said, I told you, Thielen's consistent, and Diggs is your high risk, high reward. I wouldn't say high risk. I would say medium risk because he is consistent as well.
It's funny.
He has that. He can go for like 150 yards.
I literally drilled down and looked. It actually surprised me a little bit because when I was watching the games last year, I felt like when Diggs had really good games, they won. Put it this way: when Diggs had a better game than Thielen, they won more in that situation than they did when Thielen had a better game than Diggs. But if you actually look at it, it was really split right down the middle. So it's pretty clear that they're both really important parts of that offense. And it's pretty clear that they're very consistent. Those are as good a wide receiver twos as you're going to get. because of each other capping each other's upside, I would say they're wide receiver 2s, and that's pretty much where we have them ranked. But both great players. I have Diggs in my keeper league. He's young, so like I said, dealing a later breakout age. I think he's 28, 29. He's nearing 30, and Diggs I think is 23, 24. So if it's a dynasty, it's definitely Diggs, but they're very, very close. So number 14, we talked about Diggs. Number 15 is Brandon Cooks, expert consensus rank. I have Brandon Cooks just a little bit lower than that at 16. And John, you have him. Hi, Mom. I just saw my mother walk by. John, where do you have him? I'm dying here. 20. Why do you have him so low? It's hard for me to find players on the rankings when you go all gunslinger on me like that.
I probably should have ranked him a little higher, and I guess the reason why I ranked him a little lower is I think with Cooper Kupp coming back, I think this is my opinion, like I always say, that I'm going to share. I think Cooper Kupp coming back, there was a bond there between him and Goff.
Better.
Yes. Golf. I think there's a better, like I said, bond there. So I think he's going to be involved more. So I think it's going to hurt.
Yeah, I mean,
Brandon Cooks.
Didn't you see Cooks perform with Kupp there as well, though?
He did. He performed better when Kupp was out.
Yeah, and I think Cooks. I agree with you, but I think Cooks is more Kupp proof than Woods is, because Cooks he just has a different role. He's the take the top off the defense guy. He's the home run hitter, and those guys don't fill that role. And Kupp, is the more of, he's an end zone. He's actually a red zone threat, which is surprising to some people. And he's a PPR. He knows where to be, right where Goff needs him. But I think Cooks is the best of the three, obviously, in terms of talent and upside.
He's the veteran of the group, too. Woods didn't get to show anything until he came to play with the Rams.
Yeah.
In Buffalo, he was kind of always buried there. And now he's been with the Rams. He's showing what he's capable of doing. Cooks is, if you look at his numbers through the years, he's been consistent. But he's
last year, 80 receptions, 1,204 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdown. He's never
topped over 84 was his highest for receptions.
No, and
his targets aren't extremely high. But I guess in a system with
he's the home run hitter, though.
Yeah,
he's the Deshaun Jackson, that type of guy. And what have I told you before about what I like in my flex? I want a home run hitter in my flex, and Cooks is going to have those games where he doesn't do much. And that's why you see his numbers aren't as high as some of the guys around him in the rankings. But, you look at Robert Woods, 86 receptions, 1,219 yards, and 6 touchdowns. That's pretty much the same as Cooks, and Cooks is going to have those game-winning point outputs for you, that'll seal the deal in the flex position. So I like Cooks a lot. And it's funny, I didn't used to like Cooks. He was too feast or famine for me.
You hated him.
But then, you realize, well, what are you getting in the flex? If you can get a guy like that in your flex, you're going to win a lot of weeks just based on his performance, putting you over the top.
What's crazy is, imagine if Kupp didn't get hurt. His number total for a 16-game total, if he didn't get hurt, would have been 80 receptions. Yes.
Well, we're going to talk about Kupp a little bit later on.
I'll hold it for that, then.
Hold it for that. Pinch it off.
Love Kupp.
Brandon Cooks, I like him a lot. I don't want him as my number one receiver because he's too glitchy, as you like to say. He's too feast or famine. But as a second receiver, or if you can get him as a flex, he's incredible. He's an excellent guy to have on your team. So moving on to number 16 is his teammate, Robert Woods. I have Robert Woods a little bit higher at 15. I actually flip-flop those guys because of his consistency. And John, you have Robert Woods at 13. You have him really high, so let's go ahead and talk about him. Just to give his numbers real quick, like I said, I'm regurgitating this, but 86 for 1219 is 6 touchdowns. He had 131 targets, but I would think with Kupp back, that'll go down a little bit.
He may, but I also see that the thing with Robert Woods, it's exactly what I said. In Buffalo, he never got to show his talents. Now with LA, and especially after Cup going now, and you saw more Robert Woods involved. I just think he's more consistent. He's a very polished route runner. He's not the type that's going to explode you for 300 yards or 200 yards in a game, obviously.
Yeah.
But we saw what he did in the playoffs. He was very, very consistent. So I still think he's going to be heavily involved. I think Cooks is going to be a step back this year, but I guess it's all an opinion.
Yep. Yep.
Who knows? Gerald Henderson will probably lead the team in receptions and in my lock.
So you think Robert Woods will be out of the woods this year?
No pun intended. He's got the sound effects going today, guys.
I'm trying. We're trying to be as professional as possible for a couple of guys that aren't very professional. Speaking of that, where are we at in the rankings here?
17?
We're up 17. We're cruising along on this episode. Kenny Golladay, Kenny G. You like Kenny G?
Not really.
Ooh, tell me some more stuff.
No, I like Kenny Golladay.
Oh, okay. Well, that's kind of who I was talking about.
I thought you were talking about the musician.
You got to keep up with me here.
So,
I actually had Kenny Golladay ranked right at 17. You have him ranked at 15, so you like him a little bit better than I do.
No, I like Golladay. You got to wait. You got through my hands last year. What's the unwritten rule for a receiver?
You tell me.
Third-year receivers break out.
I don't know if you guys can hear those lawnmowers.
It's a nice day. We opened the garage.
Kenny Golladay, the lawnmower man.
No, I like Golladay because here's the thing. Last year, 70 receptions for 119 targets, 1,063 yards, limited touchdowns, I think, with 5. I mean, there was a few he could have. I think he still could have caught, I guess. But I think he's gonna obviously improve. I think his numbers will go up this year. And the unwritten rule of receivers is third year they break out.
Yeah, that is true.
I am calling for the third year breakout.
I'll give you my take on him if you're interested to hear it.
Yeah.
So if you look at Golden Tate, his numbers with Detroit last year, he was on a 16-game pace for about 100 targets, which would have been low for him, I think. But still, 100 targets is a significant amount. And in theory, 100 targets are abandoned by Golden Tate. The problem is Galladay's numbers didn't really skyrocket after Tate left. And I think part of that is because he was drawing a fair amount of additional coverage, with no Golden Tate, no Marvin Jones to focus for the defenses to focus on, that it kind of put a little bit more pressure on Golladay. I think the return of Marvin Jones, I think the arrival of TJ Hawkinson should loosen the grip a little bit on Kenny Golladay and free him up a little bit more. And it'll keep the defenses a little bit more honest. My concern with Golladay is he a true number one? Will he ever be? And like you said, it was his second season last year, so typically the third season there's a breakout. But it looked like he had a hard time performing as the man.
No, and I agree with that. They also did compare him to Baby Megatron. So
yeah.
Those are big words to say by a team.
Would it be Minitron?
Minitron. But they did say
I had Calvin Johnson. He ain't no Calvin Johnson. No, I'll tell you that.
Not yet. I mean, give him time. He's going his third year, but I mean,
I like him.
Third years are usually a huge leap for receivers. Like I said, his route running should be polished. I know he had a few lingering issues of injury last year.
I would just expect 70 receptions is okay for a guy of his stature, but 5 touchdowns, I would expect to see more than that.
Yeah, I say at least 8.
Yeah,
8 or
8
9.
to 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I said, I do see improvement this year. I think Hawkinson, like DJ was saying, they're going to have to respect him because Hawkinson is almost like a receiver built like a tight end.
Yeah.
So if they don't cover Hawkinson, they're going to get killed.
Yeah, he's not like a Noah Fant. He's got almost not Gronk-like size, but he's pretty close. Probably about 10 pounds lighter than Gronk. Like Hawkinson ain't nothing to mess with.
He's fast and he's linebackers
and he
can't
can block.
cover him.
Yeah, he's got it all. So he should help. He should help. Like I said earlier, free up Kenny Golladay a little bit. So anything else on Kenny G?
No.
I hope you guys can't hear that lawnmower, but like John said, it is a beautiful day in sunny Old Orchard Beach, Maine.
As long as you can hear us, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, mean,
it is gorgeous. Like, it is perfect weather.
We are the working class podcast, and some dude is working his butt off out there cutting somebody's grass. But we had to keep the door to the war room, the garage door, open today because it is such a beautiful day. You should visit Maine. Well, no, don't visit Maine. We got enough people doing that. Stay right where you are.
Don't tie up traffic.
So, number 18, Julian Edelman. Jules, I have him at number 18 as well. John, you have him a little bit lower at number 22.
And the sad part is I'm a Pats fan, but you know what's no disrespect.
You're a fantasy football professional. You know what I mean? You don't
it's no
pick with your heart.
Disrespect to Edelman, but if I'm looking at his stats, and I get there's injuries involved there, guys.
Yeah, is there something that surprises you about his stats a little bit? And I know, didn't he miss games for being for breaking the rules like most Patriots do? Didn't he have a suspension last year? Yeah. Are you sure? Yeah. You don't look very confident.
I thought it was injury.
Nah,
I don't even remember at this point.
Are you just revising history? Like are you part of some conspiracy cover-up that Julian Edelman was not busted for roids?
Oh, yeah. I don't know what you're talking about.
That must be that nice air getting to you. But only 74 receptions. That kind of stood out to me. Only 850 yards. 6 touchdowns is pretty good for a guy in his role. But it was 12 games. So he had a 16-game pace and 99 receptions, 1,133 yards, and 8 touchdowns. But he's a 30-year-old who plays an aggressive style, and that concerns me. And we've seen Tom Brady and Bill Belichick do not care if they get their receivers hurt. They're going to throw to him, even if it's the worst scenario where they're about to get their head taken off. Ask Wes Welker. So can he, at 33 years old, that plays that aggressive style, right around when Welker fell off a cliff, can he sustain that brutality this year? What do you think?
It's going to be hard.
With N'Keal Harry in town, too. I just want to add that in there.
Well, N'Keal Harry could also help him, but I think that's going to impact him a little bit, my thoughts on it.
And James White.
James White, I think, will play more of a receiver role this year.
Yeah, because Gronk's targets, and I don't want to keep harping on this, but they will be distributed out. Yep.
Yes. And you may see, I've seen a lot from what I've been reading and watching, news-wise. Philip Dorsett is still involved quite a bit. So...
yeah,
more than we'd like to, but
boring. I don't see it with him. He had the opportunity in Indy.
The good thing about Edelman, and here's what you need to know about him fantasy-wise, he is Tom Brady's blanket. He's his blanket.
Well, wouldn't he be a security blanket?
Well, yes, that's what I mean, security blanket. That's why I say that.
If he was his blanket, he'd be covering him.
He does cover him. Have you ever seen the hugs he gives him?
Well, we're not going there. But, I mean, in all seriousness with Edelman, he is Mr. Reliable. You know, he gives you a good baseline. Another one of those guys that, if it's a PPR league, he can get you 30 points. He's a good guy to have in your flex position.
There's not gigantic upside with him.
There is, I think, in PPR there is, but in standard, quote unquote, no, I agree with you. There's not, because he caught 6 touchdowns. He was on pace for 8. That's a good touchdown count.
No, for him it is, because he showed regression through the other years, not like great.
Right.
He's never exceeded 7.
But he's the type of guy that can get you 15 catches for 120 yards, you know, and that's a pretty good total right there.
Yeah, but it's also fluctuates quite a bit though too.
It does, but his baseline is good.
No, if he can get you 15 points a week, you're good.
Absolutely, and I think he does. But I just don't know if he can stand up to the punishment.
He's 33 years old.
I know he's on steroids, so that definitely helps. I mean, that keeps you going, but it only keeps you going so long. You know what I mean? So moving on to number 19 is a guy who I have ranked at number 19 as well. That's my Rick Dees voice. Thanks.
No comment.
You have him at, what do you have, Cooper Kupp? 16. So, right, I mean, pretty much, I want to say in that range, but you definitely do have him a little bit higher. I like Cooper Kupp a lot. 56 receptions, 566 yards, and 6 touchdowns in just 8 games. So double that. It's 112 receptions, 1,132 yards, 12 touchdowns. That would be a great year.
That's why I love Kupp.
Yeah, because of the red zone target. So he's a PPR guy that gets red zone targets. And he's a favorite target of Goff. Probably the favorite red zone target. But Gurley, Cooks, Woods, those guys are going to cap his upside in, especially like with McVay's style of spreading the ball around. Would you agree with that, or?
I still stand with what I say. I think he is more of Goff's favorite target.
Golf.
I didn't say golf.
Oh.
Goff. I just think he has a better bond, and I think
every show we have that we discuss Jared Goff, I want to see how many times I can get you to say his name.
He almost made me say it again too. I just think he's going to benefit more.
Who?
Cup.
Oh, okay, not Goff.
No comment.
This is the equivalent of getting a phone stuck in your face. I'm sorry. Continue.
So I think Cup, honestly, for how young he is, and this, guess what? Another third-year wide receiver.
Yeah, the leap is real. It's not. It's not fake
real.
news. Yeah.
He's not in middle of the pack schedule. I would say 20th easiest schedule. Nothing horrible. He's not super old.
How old is he?
26. Not young either.
That's older than I thought. But no, not old by any means.
But no, in college he was amazing. I mean, I don't even remember the exact number, but it was some insane number that he holds for receptions. And he didn't have many drops, so he has very, very reliable
He's a great player.
Yeah. So
cut and dry.
I mean, let's wait and see. But I'm ranking. I like Cup a lot this year.
Yeah, I like him too. I probably won't get him based on where he's going. I think a lot of people are in love with him.
Wasn't he kept?
Well, I'm just saying. Not everybody's in our keeper league, John. But yes, he was kept. But yeah, I like him a lot. I don't see where I'm going to get him a ton of times, just because I think I can get better value at the position just by waiting a little bit.
Especially he's the third Rams receiver to be ranked.
Yeah, and they're all going to be good, I think, unless Jared Goff poops the bed like he did in the Super Bowl.
How many cold weather games does he have?
Well, that's the other thing too. So we'll see. I think the offense will be fine, but definitely a three-headed monster at receiver, and that's never. Again, that caps the upside.
Do you remember the last team that had 3 1,000-yard receiving? Oh, sorry.
I feel like I know this.
You should know it. I know it.
I do know it, but honestly, I can't think off the top of my head.
The last 3, Peyton Manning, and who was the receivers?
Probably Reggie Wayne. Dallas Clark, Reggie Wayne, Marvin Harrison.
There you go.
Would be my guess. Yeah, Dallas Clark, man.
They were unstoppable that year.
Yeah. Did they win the Super? I think they won the Super Bowl that year.
They won the Super Bowl that year, I believe.
Which is great. Congratulations.
So it can happen. You can have the talent there and everybody exceed at what they're doing.
So let me ask you this. Is Peyton Manning on the same level as Jared Goff? Okay, that's the problem. But
I'm just giving that, that chance it could happen. I didn't say it would happen.
Like I said, you're looking at 3 guys that are probably solid wide receiver 2s, excellent flex options, or wide receiver 3s. So that's where I'll leave it with those guys from Los Angeles. Moving on to number 20, Chris Godwin. I have Godwin ranked at 21, and John, you have him ranked at 24, which I think is a little disrespectful to Mr. Godwin.
I apologize for that ranking, and I'll tell you why. When I made my little rankings...
You were drinking?
No. I totally thought Adam Humphries was still there.
Oh, sorry, I can't say that. No, you can't say it. I think that's copyrighted by somebody else. I mean, I don't think it's copyrighted, but anyway, Humpty Dumpty Humphries there was he departed in free agency to Tennessee.
Yeah, so I would have ranked him higher, I guess, when I made the rankings, but I apologize for that.
Oh man, dude, you got to get your act together. So I did my homework on Chris Godwin. and he
does his homework, but yet he couldn't tell me who the last 3 to get 1,000 yards receiving were.
Well, I did tell you, technically.
Well, yeah, I got to give you a hint.
Well, yeah. I mean,
you didn't give me a hint, did you?
No.
Oh.
Hey, all you gotta do is follow.
There's a clip. There you go, John.
All you gotta do is follow free agency in the off season, homie. I mean, I shouldn't have to hand feed you that stuff.
I didn't say that.
So anyway, Chris Godwin. Last year, not a great reception count. 59 receptions, 842 yards.
But remember, he had spot starts in there, too. So his numbers don't...
You just cut me off. Stop talking. Seven touchdowns. But what do you think the advantage is this year?
He's a starter.
Yes, because Deshaun Jackson's gone. Humpty Dumpty Humphries is in Tennessee. So total, that's 104 abandoned targets. 104 from Humphries, which shocked me that his target count was that high. and 74 abandoned targets from Deshaun Jackson, 178 total abandoned targets. Godwin is a breakout guy waiting to happen, and I guarantee you it'll happen in 2019. And Tampa Bay was the most pass-heavy offense in 2018. Not going to change with the crummy running backs they have. And Mike Evans will definitely draw double coverage. O.J. Howard could draw double coverage at times. I think that's going to open up Godwin to be a PPR monster. I might have ranked him too low, but there's a lot of talent at wide receiver this year.
But you're also basing on his past, too. You're not throwing him under the bus either.
Yeah, but the sky's the limit with him, I think, this year.
Same with Howard, too, like you had said before.
Yep. Howard's, and we discussed him with the tight ends, but I think Chris Godwin is going to be that, like you said, security blanket. He's going to be in that slot role where he's going to catch a ton of balls. And I think he's got the potential. I mean, 7 touchdowns isn't terrible. Hopefully his target count goes up. I think that 59 receptions, and maybe this is, as I like to say, hot take alert, I think that could double. Would you disagree with that?
I do not disagree with that.
So, and that's a good, it's a good year.
Now you see why I ranked Winston so high, too.
Yep. So
I think they're on the rise.
So if his target count doubles at 59 receptions, he's at 842 yards. I could easily see 1,400 yards. And even if his touchdown count stays at 7, that's a really good
14
season.
if you doubled it.
Well, I wouldn't double it necessarily.
9.
Yeah.
9's very doable.
Yep, definitely. So I like Godwin a lot this year. Do you as well?
I do.
You had him a little bit low.
And I said why. I apologize for that.
No, you don't need to apologize. We all have different opinions. I will make fun of you, though, when you don't know what team a guy is on that moved in free agency. I will make fun of you every single time, and you know that.
There'll be more episodes where I make fun of him, too.
We'll see about that. I'll try to give you some opportunities to do that. So we're moving on to 21, which is Tyler Lockett. I have Tyler Lockett ranked at 24, so I might be a little disrespectful there. And, John, you have him at 17. Talk about Tyler Lockett.
Doug Baldwin's gone.
Yep.
I know DK Metcalf is there, but the issue's being we don't know what to expect from him.
But what's the key? And I'll just chime in. The key to Doug Baldwin being gone is the fact that it benefits Tyler Lockett more than it does DK Metcalf or David Moore, I think. Which a lot of people are touting David Moore. I personally don't see it, but I could be wrong. But with Tyler Lockett, first of all, I was surprised when I looked at his numbers because I thought his target count, which was 70, was much higher than it actually was. And I thought his reception count was higher too. That was only 57. So I was also surprised he got less than 1,000 yards, but he got 10 touchdowns, and that really helped his season. I would expect regression, except Doug Baldwin is gone. And once I found out that Doug Baldwin was done, I knew Lockett would primarily play out of the slot, and that looks like that's what's going to happen. And that changed everything for me, and that actually got him into my top 24. The dude is already a home run hitter. His target counts and receptions should go up, and maybe significantly. I think his touchdowns will go down a little bit, maybe 8, maybe 7, but I think playing out of the slot really raises his value, and I think he might have a career year this year. What do you think?
I agree totally on the touchdowns. It's going to be hard to sustain another 10. 10 is phenomenal for what he caught and for his targets.
Yeah.
His targets are going to go up. His receptions are going to go up.
And there's something to be said for trust with the quarterback, too.
Yes.
He's definitely got
Wilson loves him. I mean, he's not a big guy. And
no.
He actually looks smaller when you're watching him on TV, but he's 5'10".
Yeah.
He's a little underweight for his size, 180 pounds.
Yep.
But, I mean,
he's a lot smaller than people think.
Yes.
Like, he's just a few feathers heavier than Hollywood Brown. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's not a big guy, but
I mean, I see
in the role he plays, he's so fast.
all his stats show nothing but improvement for this year, other than maybe touchdowns. But his targets will go up, his yards will go up, his receptions will go up, especially if he's in the slot.
And if his touchdowns don't go down, John, that's a top 10 receiver.
Oh, easily. I mean,
potentially.
A lot of it's going to depend on Metcalf, I think, personally. If Metcalf is heavily involved and does well, then it's going to hurt Lockett a little bit, but not as much as people think it will. He will still benefit from being in the slot role.
Metcalf is either going to be discount version or I hate to say poor man's version, but I guess a poor man's version of Julio Jones, which is really good, or he's going to be a complete bust. It's going to be one of those two things. He's not going to be just a steady guy. And I think Lockett definitely has a high floor this year. So it's funny, if you asked me a month ago, I would have said, not even touching that guy because he's going to regress. But it's funny how lining up in a different area of the field can improve your production and improve your value.
Well, remember, he was never really supposed to play Baldwin's, you know what I'm saying, that outside position.
No, he was, I think he...
But he's crazy fast. So
he is, yep.
Even if they go with 2 wide receivers set and he's on the other outside, he can stretch that field. I mean, we saw bombs last year from Wilson to him.
Yep.
So it can happen even in the slot position.
Again, I'll tell you guys again, I love these high upside guys, these home run hitters in the flex. So if you can get a guy like Tyler Lockett in the flex, you're going to be in really good shape. Really good shape. So number 22, Alshon Jeffrey. I don't have Alshon Jeffrey ranked. I'd be surprised if you do. You do not have him ranked either.
Nope.
So why is that? For you, why is that?
Whiteside's going to be involved.
Arcega Whiteside, J-Jaw, as we call him.
You notice I said his last name?
Yeah, you did a good job with that. And then let's also consider that we hope Miles Sanders will be out there. Hopefully he doesn't have nagging hamstring injuries that keep him out for a good portion of the year. But we need to remember that Deshaun Jackson is now there.
Correct.
Nelson Aguilar is still there. Correct. Zach Ertz obviously is there. Dallas Goedert is a guy that's got a lot of talent. So I guess we talked about Indy having the most mouths to feed. Philly's got to be right up there. So that kind of scares me away from Alshon. Is that kind of why you're thinking in the same mindset?
That, and he is a red zone threat. I will give him that. But now they have...
Real quick, sorry. Whiteside's the same guy, too, so that's a little weird.
And younger and faster.
Right, they're the same prototype, so to speak. Sorry to cut you off.
It's fine. Jeffrey, though, he is a red zone target. I will not deny that. His worst year was, I believe, 2 touchdowns and also a 4-touchdown year, but those are 2 seasons he didn't fully play every game. He didn't even fully play last year, and he still had 6 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So, he puts up a lot of touchdowns, but you start going through his stats, and that's where it gets concerning. His targets over the last 5 years, about a 90 target ratio, and his receptions are between 50 and 60. So it's not really there. The yards aren't huge either.
He's an Allen Robinson to me.
He is. So, but now you add those weapons and dynamics that Philly's put there. Dallas, Whiteside.
Sega Whiteside.
I can never say Sega.
You just did.
I just did.
Just think Sega Genesis. Remember that back in the day?
Sega! But with those weapons involved now, I think it's going to hurt him in the long run. Wait and see approach. But I think he's going to regress personally.
Yeah, I look at him as a wide receiver 4, John, and that's where I would draft him. And that's not where he's going, so he's probably not going to be on any of my teams.
Or a desperate 3 if you need someone.
Yep. So I guess we're kind of on the same page there. We definitely differ from ECR toward the end of the top 24 here. 23 is Sammy Watkins. I get it.
It changed, though. The news changed this.
Yes, the news that we came out with on the last show.
We apologize on that one.
Well, but, like I said, Tyreek Hill is not out of the woods yet. That is not a sure thing. And, John and I were discussing this last night over via text. And, I kind of compared it to the Kareem Hunt situation. We thought Kareem Hunt was out of the woods last year, too. And then halfway through the season, a video came out, and that completely changed all of that. So I don't think I can trust Tyreek Hill this year. And we also discussed I traded up in our keeper league to get number 1 overall pick, and I'll take Tyreek Hill, but I'm going to trade him. I just don't trust him this year at all. So I get why Sammy Watkins would be ranked. Where's Tyreek Hill at now?
90.
So, yeah. So that's still way far down. And
it's based on news.
That might rise. But he was further down than that before. So, with that being said, we're assuming that, and I like Sammy Watkins as a player. As a talent, Sammy Watkins is a number one receiver level talent. And I don't think there's any question about that. I question his killer instinct. I question his ability to stay healthy, which you can't ignore at this point. And I also respect Mecole Hardman. And John just pulled up Demarcus Robinson as well. So let's not assume that all of Tyreek Hill's I respect Travis Kelce as well. But let's not expect all those targets to go to Watkins. And if they do, what could happen to him?
Oh, he could explode.
He could get hurt, or he could get hurt.
Or
You know what I mean?
hurt.
He's not proven to be a durable player.
He reminds me of Fred Taylor.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Fragile Fred.
Yep. Yeah, I like that little Christmas story reference. But I know she pulled up Demarcus Robinson. Did you have some thoughts on him?
I like Demarcus Robinson as a sleeper, and I'll tell you this. Okay, Sammy Watkins' numbers were around like 480, I think, for like 40 receptions.
Real quick, neither of us had him ranked Watkins in the top 24. Just to throw that out there.
Demarcus Robinson, for a guy who kind of played just situational role, filled in, and remember, he's very young. He's 24 years old. He had 22 receptions for 300 basically and 4 TDs.
Yeah.
So if Tyreek's not there, the targets are going to go around. You could see a Robinson explode for, let's say, 60 receptions, 8 touchdowns.
He's got to be. He's probably a little bit bigger, right? At 6'1", 203. Is that what that says?
Yep.
So a little bit bigger than Hill. Not the same. And I'll be honest with you. Full disclosure, I don't know a lot about the prototype that Demarcus Robinson is. Does he fit the mold of a Tyreek? Is he more of a possession guy? Is he a speedster?
He's a little bit of a mix.
Yeah.
He can do quite a bit. He's not so shifty like
is
Tyreek
he a glitch guy, as you call him?
No, that's Hardman.
Okay, yeah. That's
Hardman's
more.
the glitch
Yeah, I
guy.
would agree with that. Yeah.
But Robinson, he's got promising things of him. But it's also going to depend on the news of Hill. But if, let's say, Hill's out, Watkins goes down, it's going to be either Hardman or Robinson. I'm taking Robinson based on the fact that he is going with experience, first of all. It's his third year, another leap.
Yep.
Those leaps. But he's someone you can target very late for very cheap. And you know what I'm saying? Take that chance. But if it pays off, then you may have a good wide receiver too by the end
I
of the year.
agree with you. But I will say this. I think Sammy Watkins gets pigeonholed as a speedster guy. He can do everything. He's an elite talent receiver. Does he always pay off? No. But if somebody put a gun to my head and said which one of these guys is going to, get the most out of an absence of Tyreek Hill, I would say Watkins. But there's too many shades of gray there. I'm not prepared to make that leap with the top 24.
So a few things that why I'm down on him. For a guy who's drafted number 4 in the first round by Buffalo, he's never lived to that potential. Other than
I think he had one really good year,
good year.
But he's been hurt. He's always hurt.
Every other year, actually, let me scratch that. First year, his rookie season, he had an okay year. For a rookie, actually a good season.
Yep.
But after that, he's never played a full 16 games since then.
And it's always and then there was the excuse that, he was traded, in I think the preseason or right around there when he got traded to LA. So he didn't have a chance to learn the offense. It's always been something for Sammy Watkins.
His receptions are awful. I'm looking at his numbers. Even the year he played 16 games, he had 65 receptions.
Yeah.
Granted, his rookie year, I get it.
Yeah.
But even then, looking at everything, they're awful.
But and that's my concern with Watkins is there's always an excuse as to why he didn't do this or didn't do that. Elite receivers don't need excuses. They go out there and perform.
And their numbers show it, too.
Yep, exactly.
His numbers don't show it.
I mean, you look at guys even look at Cooper Kupp. I don't think I'd consider him an elite receiver, but look at his numbers when he was healthy. He produced, and
you double it, and it's
right,
a full
exactly.
season.
Or you try to. You maybe add 30% onto it.
I double Sammy's. I still want to cry.
Yeah. So, it's too bad too because when he came out of college, another really good receiver from Clemson. I liked him a lot. I actually drafted him in our keeper league that year, thinking that he was going to be a guy that was going to be a cornerstone for me for years to come. And he hasn't panned out to this point. He's younger than people think. I think he's 24. I could be wrong, maybe 25. But so he's got hopefully a lot of years ahead of him in the league. What is he?
26.
26. So it's still pretty young. But he's been in the league long enough to where it's buyer beware.
For me, I haven't seen his true breakout.
Yeah.
And until I see that, I'm not sold on him. I'm not sold on him until I see a full 16-game season either.
Yep, absolutely.
I'll pass on him. Unless I can get him very, very late for a bargain, then I might take a chance on him. But other than that, he's not going that high for me at all.
No, I completely agree with you. So we're down to number 24, and then we'll talk about a few guys that we have ranked that aren't ranked by expert consensus ranking. But that's DJ Moore. This DJ is a big fan of that DJ. Numbers weren't great last year. 55 receptions, 788 yards, 2 touchdowns. Came on strong at the end. But the big thing for me is Devin Funchess leaves Moore in a prime position to become the number 1 wide receiver target there. You like how I said wide receiver target. He's a yak specialist, and those are the guys that you want in fantasy football, the guys that get yards after catch. I think the offense should work to elevate him coming off that solid rookie year. My concern is not so much Run CMC is going to get his share of targets. We know that. He's going to catch a lot of passes. McCaffrey has his target count carved out already. It's baked in. The concern I have is that Curtis Samuel is better than people think, and I think he could cap Moore's upside.
And he was hurt a lot last season.
Yeah, and I don't even think Greg Olsen is as big of a threat to Moore as Curtis Samuel is, to be honest with you. Moore and Samuel, I like them both a lot. I think Moore is the better all-around, more polished receiver. But I'm a little afraid of what Samuel brings to the table and what could take off of DJ Moore's table in a way.
I'm kind of like stuck on the fence a little bit. Here's why I'll say that. So Funchess was there last year. Moore was there last year. Samuel was there, and Olsen. And I know it changed as Olsen went out with injury. So the ball got in the bread. The ball got spread around a little more. But here's the thing I'm looking into is where Samuel played some, Moore played. Now you take away Funchess. So those targets, even with Olsen back, you spread them around. I think all three can benefit. The question is who's going to be the highest ranked. I think Moore has an ability to do it. He averaged anywhere from 4 to 6 catches basically from week 5 on.
Yeah, he finished strong.
And there was a few games, he's a rookie. Most rookies, they can still get the jitters. I don't even know if he knew the playbook. He must have. I'm not doubting that. But they get better as the years go on. They get more polished at, the route tree running, the playbook. They have
chemistry with the quarterback. Yep.
So for a guy who's producing anywhere from 4 to 6 catches, like a floor, now you take out Funchess and you're possibly seeing 5 to 7.
He's the number 1, I think, outside of McCaffrey.
Let's say a bad game for him is 5 receptions.
5 for 80. 5 for 60,
5
maybe.
For 60.
Yeah,
You're still going to get a solid 10 points.
Yeah, you're good baseline.
The only thing that would concern me more
is Cam.
Well, but touchdowns too. We only had 2.
Yeah, and
that could change though.
Yeah, and Cam. See, the thing with Cam is I actually think his situation could benefit more, just because the shoulder, and Cam might not run for the touchdowns that he used to run for because of the shoulder. You know what I mean?
It might be shorter.
There might be short intermediate routes that he's throwing for. You know what I mean? So Samuel is more of the home run hitter. DJ Moore is more of the possession receiver.
Those slants.
Yep. So I think that could help him. You got to see how it shakes out with Newton and what his shoulder situation is. And if he's out, Will Grier, what does he bring to the table? How does that change the dynamic? But
if Will Grier comes in, I think Samuel's going to benefit more because he's a deep thrower.
Yeah. But I look at Moore as a solid top of the tier wide receiver 3. And with the potential to be a pretty good wide receiver 2 as well. Would you agree with that?
I agree.
All right, so let's talk about some guys that weren't ranked by ECR. This one kind of surprised me. Mike Williams was not ranked. I think the sky is the limit for Mike Williams this year. Obviously, Hunter Henry is going to be back, so that'll affect him. But he had 43 receptions last year, 664 yards, Williams that is, and 10 touchdowns, which is great. And that's what he is. He's a good, big, solid red zone target. No more Tyrell Williams. So that makes, to me, Mike Williams the surefire number 2 behind Keenan Allen, and he's a different type of receiver than Keenan Allen is. So he's not going to be eating from the same plate that Keenan Allen is. But Henry could take away those red zone targets. So does he go from 10 touchdowns to 8, 6? Who knows? But he made big steps last year in the right direction. Should be a solid wide receiver 3 in fantasy. But Keenan Allen and Henry will get theirs. And Gordon will get targeted out of the backfield too. And maybe you almost had me saying Eckler. He may be a factor as well. But I think with Tyrell Williams gone, Mike Williams should see, I think 70 to 80 receptions, around 1,200 yards, and I think his touchdown total, I think it'll stay roughly around 10. And maybe even be a little bit more than that. He's got that Devontae Adams type of size, if I'm not mistaken. He's a bigger target. So, and he's not Keenan Allen. He plays a different role than Keenan Allen is. So they're not going to really cannibalize each other. Henry might cannibalize him. What do you think about Mike Williams?
I'm hoping Mike Williams doesn't go off because I have that bet with you with Keenan Allen. He's definitely very talented. If you've ever seen him, he's an immediate red zone threat. He can jump. I think his vertical leaps are like over 3 feet. But he makes just some amazing catches. And I think, with Tyrell Williams.
What was that bet with the Keenan Allen thing? I can't remember.
Good.
Do you remember what that bet was? Have you been practicing, John?
Still early. We have all season. Do the whole.
Remember, you're gonna be singing that song,
hey,
bro.
Considering
you're singing it already. What's the difference?
I'm already singing it. See it?
But you got to wear the nose and everything. It's gonna be awesome.
It's gonna be on video. You guys are gonna love it.
Yeah. Hopefully it's not me. So yeah. Anyway, Mike Williams. I think we both like him, right? I mean, I don't know if you had him in your top 24.
I have him in my dynasty league, so I am high on him.
Yep. So that's a guy that
and if Keenan Allen goes down, which I don't hope on that bet, basically.
Yeah.
But if Keenan Allen ever goes down, Mike Williams will be the immediate number 1 there.
Yeah.
And he will shine.
Yeah, definitely.
So someone to have.
But I think it's kind of like Julian Edelman and N'Keal Harry. I think they both have the potential to have good season because they don't do the same thing.
They do different things.
Exactly. So I also had Jarvis Landry ranked. I had him ranked at 23. I think people are disrespecting Jarvis a little bit. Last year he had 81 receptions, 976 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So his touchdown count was back down to its norm. He never catches a lot of touchdowns. His reception count was a little lower than I think we're used to seeing. He's normally up 90 to 100. But Odell Beckham's there, and if he decides that he wants to play and not pout, he's going to draw a ton of coverage. And I think that's going to open up Landry because I don't know how you feel about it, but when I watched Baker Mayfield last year, he didn't hyper-target anybody. He seemed to spread the ball around, and he looked for the open man. And Eli Manning was more of the, I'm going to hyper-target my primary target. So I think Landry's going to be open a lot more than he was last year because he was their quote-unquote number 1. But there's Odell who's got that me-first attitude, and he's going to demand targets. And that could kind of, the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
I mean, here's how I feel. I think that Landry's numbers are only going to get better. He was trying to build a chemistry with Mayfield, first of all.
Yep.
Second of all, he was not lining up in his certain role like he usually is, which is always
now he can.
Slot.
Yeah.
He was manning the outside. He was all over the field. They had to. He was their number 1. They had to use him any way they could to get him the ball. So,
and he kind of does this matter? I mean, you guys may not know this, but John actually played semi-pro football. As a player, when you have history with the other receiver, does that create a chemistry too? Like, does that?
Yes, because for one thing is where Landry and Odell Beckham played at LSU together. It's a bromance. They've been good friends even off the field.
Does it matter, like, and this is, because I'm fascinated by this, as a receiver and you have that chemistry with the other receiver, does it matter that you both know that the other one's going to be where they're supposed to be, or does that really just matter for the quarterback?
No, it matters for the receivers as well, I think. I think because they're going to know, like, one makes a certain cut, one's going to make another cut. It may create mismatches. I mean, these two could explode, though, too.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of...
One ball, though. Yeah,
we don't know if Beckham's going to bring that diva mode. If he
will.
If he can put that aside...
There's death, taxes, and Odell Beckham will be a whiny little baby.
And if Beckham, for some reason, puts it aside, Beckham could blow up. Or Beckham's going to get double covered a lot.
Yeah.
And Landry's going to go back to his 110 receptions again.
Yeah, definitely. I see that upside.
I can definitely see that more. And here's the thing is, okay, if you're double teaming Odell Beckham, you also have to watch Chubb out of the backfield.
Yeah.
Okay? So if they're respecting Chubb and now you're respecting Odell Beckham.
Njoku's no joke.
He just drops the ball.
Kareem Hunt will be there at one. We were kind of joking. I actually compared, like, so I don't know if you guys have ever seen a litter of puppies and when they go eat, and if there's a runt of the litter, I think Njoku's going to be the runt of the litter, just really trying to get into that bowl and eat. But there's just he's going to get.
I don't think it's going to be his year. I think I think another year maybe.
Not to get on topic of tight ends, but I think Landry will be a valued target. I think he's going to be open. He's going to be available for Mayfield to throw the ball to him. And I think that seems to be what I've seen from Mayfield. That's what matters to him. Get open and I'll throw the ball to you. I'm not going to force it to you necessarily. So I think that's it for me that had guys ranked in the top 24 that were not ranked by the expert consensus ranking. For you, John, looks like Christian Kirk at 23. And I think you had Calvin Ridley in there somewhere
let's talk
somewhere
about
as well.
Ridley.
So let's talk about Ridley first because I know you like him a lot.
Calvin Ridley, he has a very easy schedule. He's in a pass-happy offense, okay? So as a rookie, 64 receptions for 92 targets as a rookie for 821 yards. And I see regression in this next number I'm going to give you, but that's not where I see the positive of all this. So his touchdowns last year, 10. 10 as a rookie.
That's excellent. Didn't he catch like 8 of them in one game, though?
He had multiple games, multiple touchdowns.
Okay.
But that's what makes him a huge threat.
Yeah.
And here's where I think. So it's his second year.
You like Calvin Ridley.
I love
just to throw that out there.
Calvin Ridley is going to shine this year. And if you want to sleep on him, go ahead. I'm not saying picking him up early. But if you can get Ridley at a good price, I'm on it. I'm telling you that now.
Like a Honda.
He's got an easy schedule. Sanu is out there in the wheelchair.
Sanu is...
he's still consistent.
Sanu is a good football player and a great guy to have on your football team, but he's not a fantasy relevant guy.
But why'd they draft Ridley?
Right, and he's not exactly.
They drafted Ridley for the future, and guess what? Sanu's future...
Let me tell you something. If Ridley or Julio get hurt, you run to the waiver wire and you get Sanu. Otherwise, he's not really going to be relevant.
Thank you. He's a bye-week fill-in at most.
Definitely.
At most, if you're hurt.
And we've used him a couple times in our tag team league.
Yep, let's be honest. Since Tony Gonzalez hasn't played for the Falcons, have they really had a good tight end?
It's definitely not Austin Hooper.
Hooper, who just got hurt in minicamp, too. Nothing major, but he's still hurt. I think it's a hamstring. Shocker.
Didn't they had one tight end that was... maybe I'm thinking about... No, I'm thinking about... Kansas City had Tony Moiaki for 1 year. He was pretty solid.
But Ridley, I think...
For you hardcore fantasy football fans, that's for you.
I think Ridley's going to see an 80 to 90 receptions this year because Sanu's obviously his career is tailing down. Julio Jones is going to get double covered, even though the man can beat half the double coverage.
Yeah, he's a beast.
But here's the thing. They tried so many times last year to feed Julio in the red zone, and it's not... They just triple covered and double covered him, and teams found a way.
He had his highest touchdown count ever.
Yeah, and
Ridley eclipsed it in his rookie year with 10. Yeah.
So Ridley is what you call a high ceiling guy.
He's a high ceiling flex guy. I agree with you. But the reason
I'm big on him, I see his receptions going up. I see his targets going up.
Yep.
And where he played more third receiver last year, I think he'll play more second receiver.
Yep.
And I think he's going to make a big leap this year. I'm not seeing 1,500 yards. I don't think that.
Yeah.
But I'm just seeing those numbers go up. Well, even if his touchdowns stay the same, but yet his receptions, targets go up, yardage, I think, honestly, a good floor of, let's say, low 80 receptions, 1,200 yards, and 8 touchdowns.
And you know, you have a knack for picking these guys out of the crowd. I'm not going to dispute
and the
that.
7th easiest schedule in a pass-happy offense.
Yep, and that helps with where some guys lack with ability. And I'm not going to say Calvin Ridley doesn't have ability, but I thought he was the 4th or 5th best receiver in that draft. You know, that was just my opinion. But yeah, I definitely see the upside there. And I think when we start to hit the season and people are doing real actual drafts, I think you're going to probably see him ranked in the top 24, especially if there's some injury attrition that's going on as well.
You have anybody else on here you want
No,
to talk
I'm
about?
good, man. So, yeah, that caps off the top 24 wide receivers. And just, you guys are probably thinking, well, 24 is a weird number. Well, basically the top 24 because we're basing it on 12-team drafts. So the first wide receiver 1s and wide receiver 2s basically is why we go top 24. So starting next week, John, we're going to get into the real fun stuff. We're going to get into the top 24 running backs. So that's going to be pretty fun. I can't wait for that.
Can't wait.
But also, yes, Bart Scott. Also, for you guys that have been loyally listening to us, we really appreciate it. So we're actually going to throw out a bonus episode this week. Probably going to be posted right around Saturday just for your listening pleasure. And we're going to do Mock Draft 2.0. And we're actually going to use Sleeper. And we're telling you that we're going to use Sleeper because actually they're doing a really cool thing where if podcasts do mock draft episodes and use Sleeper, that they'll retweet that for us. So that's super cool of them to do. It doesn't cost them any money, doesn't cost us any money, and it's a cool grassroots thing for those guys to do and support podcasts, especially those of us that are still in the early nucleus stages of what we're doing here. So, is that everything?
Yeah.
Oh, Listener League.
We need 2 more.
Two more. We've got 8. We have accepted 8 into the league, and we've got 2 more spots open. And if you are interested, please email armchairfb@gmail.com. That's our email address. Or you can tweet at us. John is at John2977.
Correct.
I am at Armchair Kingpin. And then, of course, we're on Facebook as well. So look us up there. Yeah, so if you guys want in, there's 2 spots left. You win the league, you get some free swag, which is pretty cool.
We'll even shout you out, too.
And we'll give you a shout out. Maybe we'll let you call into the show or something. But that's pretty much it for this episode, guys. We appreciate you listening. Look out for that special bonus episode with the mock draft. It's actually going to be head-to-head mock draft, so you guys can tell us who made out better and who has the better team. And for me, DJ, I appreciate you guys listening. John, anything else?
No, just biggest thing I have to say is thank you for all your support. Thank you for all the support going forward. Looking to have a very successful season myself, and I hope you guys do too. So reach out with questions, concerns, anything. We are here for you guys.
So real quick, John, it's starting to get that time of year. Do you feel it in the air? Are you feeling the anticipation of the draft?
The sad part is I want to do one now. But I guess that's, why we're mock drafting.
We'll do one shortly for Saturday. We'll do a mock draft. But yeah, I hope you guys are feeling the itch because we are too. I know some of the guys in the league are texting me. It's like, oh, I wish I could draft tomorrow, and so do we. But that's part of it. It's the anticipation, the build-up, and hopefully we can get you guys prepared for the draft. And really, if you like us, if you like what we're doing, or if you don't like us and you want people to laugh at us, just please share our stuff, share what we're putting on Facebook, retweet our stuff on Twitter. Just continue to support the show so we can keep doing this. We really appreciate it. And I just wanted to have one more sound effect. And that'll do it for this week, or for this episode. Well, yeah, for this week, actually, kind of. I don't know. I'm talking like you now. Anyway, guys, peace out. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys soon.
Thank you for listening to the Armchair Fantasy Football Podcast. Thanks for supporting the show. Until next time.